for joining us for our first ever Lunch and Learn for the Youth Village's Nashville group homes. We're excited to share this information with you, and we're excited to have a couple of guests today from the group homes that are able to tell you a lot more than Lindsay and I are. So I think.
Well, I was going to give a quick overview of our Middle Tennessee Youth Villages programs. So we here in Middle Tennessee have 5 different offices and a bunch of different community-based programs, and then the group homes as well, which you'll hear about in a little bit. But part of those programs include our Intercept services, which are home-based care, our foster care and adoptions programs, and our LifeSet program, which helps young adults who have turned 18 while in the foster care system. We have what's called a Continuum of Care, and so what that essentially means is that when a youth enters into one of our programs, we offer sort of a linear approach to meeting all of their needs. So if they were to need intensive residential services, or a group home setting, or in-home services with their family, we provide all of those things, and they're able to seamlessly go back and forth between those as they need those services. And we do serve all of the counties in Middle Tennessee, and we primarily work with the state, but anyone can access our program that has TennCare or is in state's custody. We also have a statewide specialized crisis program that meets the acute needs of any minors in the state of Tennessee. So if someone is suicidal or has a need for speaking to someone in crisis, then they can call that hotline, and they help them connect with services. So a few just numbers off the bat. Right now, our Intercept program, which is our in-home counseling program, we have about 370 cases on any given day for that across Middle Tennessee. We have a few subset programs. One is called Thrive. It's a smaller, less intensive service for more case management, and that's about 60 of those. And then we have, on the opposite end, we work with our juvenile justice population, which is a little bit more intense, with about 30 youth right now. And then foster care, we're at about 162 cases at any given time around Middle Tennessee. And one exciting project with our foster care program is that we've been serving for almost 2 years, I think, for DCS with they are FSWs, the frontline case managers with DCS are FSWs, and so we're serving as their staff, so they're privately contracting us to help them with their cases, and we're about to expand that to a full team and really help our state system even further with those cases here in Davidson County, which is one of the highest need counties just in terms of risk and population. So. And then our LifeSet program with the young adults, on any given day, we have about 250 to 260 cases. We're also in a special project with DCS as well, where we're serving as almost like an FSW, but it's for adults who've aged out of custody in their extension of foster care program. And we have about 80 to 100 of those youth at any given time in that. So, I mean, I think that's just a brief overview of what programs we offer and the services that we have. We definitely have not slowed anything down. In fact, we've grown since the pandemic. We've just really found that the needs are greater. There's definitely, we're seeing, just as everyone in the country and the world are seeing higher risk in suicidal thoughts and behaviors, and hospitalizations around that have increased, and then just needs, overall needs of living, whether that be financial or safety kind of needs. So we're busy, and we've adapted with some telehealth services, but we're also going out in person when there's a safety risk as well. So we're busy bees over here and doing a lot of work. So I don't know if there are specific questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
And we'll have some more Q&A at the end, but thank you, Nikki.
Yeah.
And Nikki is the director of our programs.
Oh, sorry.
For the Nashville office. And Nikki, I don't know how long you've been with Youth Villages, but
yeah, 16 years.
16 years. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's kind of seen it all. And next up, we do have Mr. Benedicta BC. He is assistant director of outpatient, but basically he's in charge of the Nashville group home. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to give a really great overview.
Hey, how's everybody doing? I'm Benedicta BC. I'm the assistant director for Middle Tennessee Group Homes. I've been with Youth Villages for 15 years, and I've had the opportunity to spend most of my 15 years working, whether with our group homes or in our residential programs, most in middle group homes. So I've been here. I've probably had almost every position that we've had available in the group homes, and I've worked my way from direct care to the role that I'm currently in. In Nashville, we have 3 group homes here in Nashville in the Middle Tennessee area. We provide services for about 28 to 29 kids total in each group home. We do average about that amount number at each group home for entire per year. Our ages range from 13 through 18. Once they turn 18, they normally age out of our services and transition to an independent living program as they leave us. We deal with the similar and same behaviors as our residential program. So most of our kids transition to us after they successfully complete one of our residential programs, and they come to our program to reintegrate back into the community. So our goal there is to help them get back into a community placement so they can gain the skills they need so they can transition, whether it may be to a foster home, back home to their family members, to an adoptive home, or age out successfully with us. Our program actively works with our family members to focus on greenification, but we have seen a big growth in working with kids that are in full guardianship, meaning that they truly don't have a true permanency option as well as a home to transition to. So with that being said, we do our best to kind of work on the skills that they need when they're with us, whether it may be educational needs that they may have, therapeutic needs they may have, so that they can transition from our program into out into a home setting or age out on their own. We work hand on with our schools to make sure that we can provide our kids with the things they need, recovering school credits, and getting them back into a true public school setting. A ton of our kids come to us where they probably bounced around from school to school or have been in residential treatment for a while. So being in a public school setting is something that they're not used to being in. So our goal is to continue to work with them and try to get them the skills they need so that they can work in those school settings, get their education needs met, and move on from our program. Our kids average about 182 days in our program. Our staff provide direct support to our kids, and as well as in a community setting. We try to use a lot of the resources we have in the community to help them build the skills they need. Again, because they haven't been in a community setting for so long, so we try to use a lot of the resources that we have in here and outside of our programs to help them as they grow. I'm not, again, I know you said we might have some questions after, so I'll leave that and let Ellen continue on.
Yep, we'll kick it over to Ellen. Ellen Blazing is one of our counselors at the Tollwood home, and she previously worked in our foster care program, but I will turn it over to Ellen.
Thank you. So I'm at Tollwood, and the way our group homes are set up, we have one for our females, and then we have 2 male group homes. Binkley is our kind of younger male group home. Those are like 13 to 15 or 16-year-olds, and if they're still with us at that time, yeah, perfect. Here's a rundown. So I have all the 16 and 17-year-old teenage boys, which some days is as crazy as that sounds to work with 10, 16, and 17-year-old teenage boys. But it's a ton of fun, and it's just really a fun group of kids in all of our group homes to work with. I love the group homes because they're kind of like a sweet spot in the continuum, and that honestly I'm coordinating with every single other program. Like Mr. BC said, most of our kids are coming from a higher level residential setting, and they're stepping down to us for that kind of reintegration into the community piece. And so you're coming from that higher level for a reason. So we get just kind of a huge range of past behaviors and referral issues that the kids are dealing with or have dealt with. And we're trying to kind of be this place for them to stabilize and reintegrate into the community, and then continue to connect them with other services. So I'm consistently working with our Intercept transition worker who works with biological families to help them build skills to get the kid back home. I'm constantly on emails with foster care trying to see if we have a placement so I can move these kids out of the group home into a step down option. But also, especially with my age range, almost all of my kids have a life set worker, and so living skills, because like Mr. BC said, a lot of them, they end up going to independent living. That kind of becomes their permanency option. And after spending a couple of years in residential, they really need the help with those skills. So, and then unfortunately, sometimes I'm on the phone with crisis, and we're, in a tough spot that maybe is beyond what we can handle as a group home, and we're seeing if they need additional services or more help. So, we're kind of this fun little sweet spot of the continuum where we're just taking all of the services that Youth Villages provides and doing what we need to as an agency to get these kids, the help and the services that not just they need, but their family too. So I'm like the therapist, so I'm providing the direct mental health needs for the kids. So I meet with them for individual sessions once a week, and then we do group therapy sessions 3 times a week. And then I'm also working with the families if there's any family involvement, and providing some family sessions with them, because you can imagine if it's been a couple of years since they've been in the community, that means it's been a couple of years since they've been with their family too. So it's, again, just kind of like this collaborative approach to make sure that not only the kids' needs are met, but really that the family's needs are met. And I especially love my job because I get to, my first introduction to these kids is this file, this name that I get to look up in our system and see their criticals or their past behaviors or the reason that they were sent to wherever they were, a residential facility or whatever. And sometimes it looks really bad. I'll just be honest, it can look really bad on paper, but to hear the counselors at residential talk about all the progress that these kids made and get to be like their next stop in that process and help move them forward, and then getting myself to be on the phone with foster parents and be like, listen, this can look really rough, but this kid has worked so hard. They do some really hard work. They've got to process a lot of trauma sometimes, and they really have to overcome a lot of negative behaviors that they've picked up along the way. And so I love those calls where I get to be on a call with their team or with a foster parent or even with their own biological family and be like, listen, I know that this kid has this history, but you got to hear about the cool things that they've done. Recent story to tug at your heartstrings. We have a group right now that's very into working out and athletic. Well, let me maybe clarify. About half of the group is into working out and very athletic, and the other half really likes helping in the kitchen and learning new recipes, and they love that good old Southern cooking, and they're not athletic. But we had like this really awesome competition this week in the group home, and it was so fun. We had a couple of kids who are on the much more athletic range really step up and be leaders, and not just like, oh, I'm the athletic one, I'm going to be the leader of the group, I'm going to score all the points, I'm going to do this, whatever, but like true leadership skills. Like they were pulling in the kids who you wouldn't expect to do well or be athletic, and they were just so encouraging and like just brought their teams together and really kind of owned that true leadership that we want people to have. And it was just so much fun to watch and be a part of, because like these are 16 and 17-year-old kids who have worked really hard and learned leadership skills that a lot of adults don't even have. And so it's just really fun to be a part of that process, because at the end of the day, like they're just 16 and 17-year-old boys, and they really kind of put in the hard work to earn that place of normalcy that maybe they didn't have a couple of years ago. So again, if there are specific questions, I can talk about our kids or our group homes all day, so I'll let you guys ask any specific questions. But yeah, it's just kind of, I love the group homes. They're just a really fun place to help our kids, and kind of the combination of like their greatest need, but also like their greatest time to shine as they're getting ready to be adults.
Awesome. Thank you, Ellen. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. BC. He's going to kind of talk about specific needs we have at the group home right now. They're ongoing, but he can really, be able to explain those in a little more detail.
Yeah, so the first thing I'll start off by saying is when I talk to my staff, I always tell them to approach things as if we're the true caregivers for our kids. So when we look at what's needed, we need to respond as caregivers. So our biggest struggle right now is working through this whole pandemic. I'm trying to find the best way to make sure our kids' education needs are being met. It's very hard because everything is virtual. So having the amount of technology that's needed to provide to meet their education needs has been somewhat of a struggle for us. So we continue to look at that and making sure that they have everything they need education-wise. We used to have tutors come in and work hands-on with our kids. Now that has to be done virtually as well. So how we take care of the tutors, how we pay for the tutors has become such a little bit of a struggle, because we need to focus more on increasing the amount of tutors because of everything is virtually as well now. So that has affected somewhat of our kids' education. Our tutors normally start as soon as school starts, and we've had to wait until right around this time, close to midterms, to get their tutoring done. Another area that we're struggling with, or we've had some struggles with, is normally our kids are in school every day. So having and making sure that they have appropriate meals, normally all of that comes during school. So now trying to provide every single meal for all our kids, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it has shown and how it's affected us as a program, and from a budget standpoint, because we need to make sure that we meet all their needs and they have what they need to eat. So it has increased some of those things. I think the other thing is also just focusing on safety. We try to make sure that our kids are safe, and we're keeping them away from anything or anyone that may that could provide or can create bring in some of what we have going on outside. So trying to make sure that our kids are safe, and that they don't they have everything they need while they're working at the group homes, from making sure that they have enough books to read, making sure that they have enough make sure the internet is working correctly so that they can get their schoolwork done, making sure that they also have some fun things to do, because they're teenagers and they want to have fun and they want to enjoy things that they're doing. also making sure that we're providing them with all the things they need health-wise. So we try to make sure that we have some type of recreation therapy for them as well, whether that's indoor, outdoor activities, finding somewhere to have those type of activities as well. Create some type of concern for us, because we need to know exactly where we can go, what we can do, how we're going to do it, with making sure that our kids are being safe, making sure that whoever is going to help us with those services are being safe as well. And then you go into the dynamic of the group home. Like Miss Ellen said, we have some kids that may be more athletic and want to do things that are more geared towards sports, and we have those kids that enjoy cooking. So teaching them the skills, especially at Tallwood with our older boys. I don't think we have one kid over there that will be transitioning home. So every one of them is going to age out from our program into an independent living program. So we need to make sure that they have those independent living skills that they need. So the cooking, managing finances, budgeting, interviewing skills, all these things are things that we are also trying to make sure that we can get our kids to have through this pandemic, make sure that they have everything. And then we move on to like our major needs is we focus on the safety of our program. So, one of the things that we've struggled with for years is we're on the same line as all the surrounding areas. So if the power goes out in a group home, trying to make sure that we have generators to keep the group home running, keep running and functioning like we need to make sure that the kids' needs are being met. That's something that for years we've been trying to figure out how we can do, how we can meet their needs, because the reality is that if the power in this area goes out, we have to figure out the best way to continue to function. Because it's going to be 8 to 10 kids at each group home, and all of them still need to be able to get schoolwork done, still get showers done, all of these things. And then also just the basic upkeep of the houses. Our goal is to put them in a setting that is as close to normal as possible. So maintaining the houses is real important, because they're houses in a neighborhood, in a public, in a community setting. So it's just your basic maintenance needs for the houses. They pile up. You're talking about a normal house and you have 8 to 10 kids. My toddler is tearing up my house and he's only 2. So when you have 8 to 10 teenage boys and girls, they can do some damage, So I think that that's kind of what we're looking at, as how can we maintain our programs, how can we keep our kids safe, and how can we make sure that our kids' needs are being met throughout all of this that's going on.
Great, thank you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Julie Abbott. Julie is our volunteer and outreach coordinator and has done an amazing job with engaging volunteers during the pandemic. And she's going to talk a bit more about how to volunteer at the group homes and opportunities that we have.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. BC, for laying out all the needs there. I think, and Ellen kept saying, how much fun she gets to have with these kids. And one of the things that I experience in my world as volunteer coordinator is I experience the kids at their best. And hopefully our volunteers are experiencing the kids at their best as well. Having people come in is a reward, and they know that. Having people come in and do activities, having people come in and paint the bedrooms or clean the carpets, do the yards, or come over and just play games and hang out and have a meal. The youth know that all of that is a reward system for them. So they are on their best behavior when we come over. But there are a few things that we want you to know as volunteers. Lindsay, if you could flip the slide for me. It's all good. So there's a few things, there's realities with our youth. You've heard about where they come from, how they get to us, what they're experiencing. So there's a few things that we ask you as volunteers to recognize that these are everyday things for the kids. And one of the biggest things for me to learn when I came in was the boundary thing. it's okay to refer back to our staff. The kids will come and ask us questions as outsiders, and it may be honest, or it may be a way to manipulate and see what they can get away with you or us as a group. So I always refer back to the staff when a youth asks me either for something or to do something. The answer is, I'm not sure about that. Let's talk to your staff member. The people in the houses know best. They know the youth. They know what's going on. And always feel free to say that. And the youth know that we are trained to say that as well. So they will not be offended if you say, I don't know, go ask a staff member. The other big thing is just personal space. We're all, especially now with COVID, but we're all just getting to know each other. So we really want to respect personal space. And also just be aware that they are teenagers. And I think we're going to get into a minute, but the way we dress, the way we act, we also don't want to be sitting really close on the couch with the youth or anything like that. We don't want to lead them to think that we are closer with them than we actually are. And we model that as the adults and the staff in the room. And one of the biggest things is not asking them about their personal details, about how they got to us, where they live, where are they from. We don't ask those questions. We never really know what's going to come out of their mouths. They may on their first visit with you, they may share their entire story. They may hold back everything. And if it starts to get a little too deep, a little too quick, again, always we can refer back to the staff members. Wow, that's heavy. That's a lot. Thank you for trusting me with that. But I do want your staff member to know that, this is going on or whatever. And we just don't ask questions to kind of further that conversation. And then, Linz, if you'll keep an eye on the chat for me, you guys, we'll take questions sort of as we go too. And Linz, if you'll keep an eye on the chat and let me know if questions pop up. Okay. And can you, you flip, good. Okay. One of the other things to know, and I think Ellen and Mr. BC addressed this really well, but they are learning appropriate ways to deal with anger management, frustration, and sometimes even just being happy and excited, and how to control that. We've seen it with CrossFit when the youth were going to CrossFit a while back. Their trainers over there were trained to deal with, wow, either I didn't do the thing or wow, I did the thing, and now I'm letting loose, and my emotions and my excitement are getting the best of me. So they are working with their coping mechanisms. They are working with reflection. And if it is that negative, the negative emotions, they can lose privileges. And so we ask you just to, really be trying to use your positive feedback with the youth. Great job. Even if it's just something little, if somebody is focusing on something, a lot of the youth may have problems just focusing on an activity, and wow, I like the way you're doing that. Praise for their good work and participation. Some of them will sit back, and that's okay too. Just being there is a big thing for some of these youth. So yeah, and always, if something does start to get a little heated or somebody gets upset, something like that, please always just step back. House staff is always there. We never leave our volunteers alone. There's always someone with ears and eyes on the situation with our staff, and they will step in. And just always be aware, you're the adult in the room and setting the example. I think that's a big one. One more, Liz. So yeah, I addressed this a little bit, that they may test limits and see what they can get away with, they can't get away with. Again, refer back to staff. When in doubt, ask the staff. And follow their guidelines. A lot of what we do might appear really strict, but it is for the best interests of the youth. They may have to ask to use the restroom, and that's so staff knows where everybody's at all times. There are things that we have to do to keep everybody safe. Yeah. Oh, and the other biggie is make sure that you've talked to at least myself or Lindsay or a staff member before promising any extra or other activities or items that you think might be coming in for the youth. A lot of times, again, those are used as incentives, so make sure that we talk with staff first about that as well. Okay. All right, and I think we've got this one down pretty well. Things to do: respect their personal space, ask permission of the youth. You know, a lot of them may not know how to do a handshake properly, and it may be awkward. Right now, side hugs are not even a thing. We're not seeing our youth face to face much right now these days. If you do come over to the houses, we just ask that you treat it like any public space. Leave your valuables in your car. We can lock them in the staff office in the house. Always ask before bringing something, giving something, or buying something for the youth in the house. Don't ask a youth to go get something out of your vehicle for you. That's what that keep your keys with you means. A lot of times we're tempted to throw our keys at somebody and say, hey, can you grab this thing for me? I'm busy. We ask that you have another volunteer do that for you or do it yourself there. And then dress code, you're going to work with youth. You're probably going to be doing a painting project or a craft or playing something. You want to be comfortable, but make sure it's not too tight or too revealing. And I'm going to go ahead on this slide and say show up on time, and schedule is really important to the youth. We keep a very rigid schedule with them. But when we switch to the next slide, I'm going to drop all the way to the bottom and say don't be offended or take it personally if the youth or staff are late to an event or have to miss something at the last minute. So that seems like an unfair situation that we expect volunteers to be there no matter what, and that we say, well, the kids may not be there. A lot of times things will happen at the very last minute on the way to an activity. We've had youth get car sick in the van on the way to an activity. We've had youth that, everybody's super excited to go, but maybe one person doesn't like the idea of the activity and they might try to blow it for the whole house at the last minute. So that's just something to be aware of. And we do our best to be in communication with everybody to make sure that, the house lets us know, that we let the volunteers know. But generally things do happen, and they do happen on time. The rest of this is pretty much common sense on this one. Sharing too much personal information, like where you live. We don't want to really share our addresses. Think about what your social media boundaries are. You're not going to share your address there, but you might, you can say, yeah, I live in this neighborhood, that's fine. Or here's what I do for a living, because maybe you're going to, cue them with some more questions about, wow, that sounds really cool. How do I do that? Or what did you do to get to that? Those are the kind of questions we can answer. Again, don't ask them personal questions about their personal lives or treatment. Photos are a bold do not. You're allowed, when you're with our groups, to take pictures of yourselves, the activities, take pictures of the homes, the interiors of the homes as we're doing the projects. That's great, but we ask, because of HIPAA and the privacy of our youth, that we don't take pictures of the youth. If we need group pictures and such with the youth doing an activity, staff will always be involved in that. And then just the other stuff, again, common sense, promises you can't keep, things like that. I apologize for my alarm system. She's barking. Yeah, and then just some other really fun things coming up. We've got Holiday Heroes coming up in December, which is huge. We plan to serve roughly 2,500 youth this year, and each of those youth will get the top 3 wishes on their personal wish list. Our Young Professionals group is year-round. If you have anyone that would like to get involved with that, Lindsay is our ambassador for that. And then, of course, we have CrossFit and golf coming up next year. We hope we get through this. And all of those opportunities that Mr. Abisi talked about, I also have on a one-pager for volunteerism that I'm always sending out to folks in different ways to help. But what volunteering with our youth boils down to is it's very brainstormable. I love to sit with volunteers on the phone and just brainstorm, what could we do? Here's a thing that we'd like to do. Now let's make it a reality. So if nothing that we talked about sounds like, I don't know if I want to do that, but I'm really good at this, let's talk about it. There's really not too much that's off the table. So we don't want volunteers to be hesitant or shy because they don't want to do yard work or something else intimidates them. It's all on the table. So that's about all I've got. Linz, you want to take it back?
Here's our contact information. Feel free to email any of us, and we can forward your email on to, if it's group home related, either Ellen and Mr. VC, or if it's about youth villages as a whole, we can forward that on to Nikki and she can answer any questions. But I appreciate everyone joining. Again, we'll be sharing this and we'd love for you to share it on. We find this could be a really great tool to get some more support for the group homes during this time of uncertainty. So thank you again for everyone for joining.